Hello, everybody. Welcome to Daily Coaching. Daily Coaching are currently hosting a series around players and their experiences of being coached. And I'm delighted to announce today that we have with us Zoe Rushen of Billericay Town Women. And what we'll be doing is discussing kind of her first experiences with football, how she started sort of at a grassroots level, all the way up to a first team, which she's currently at the moment. So first of all, I'd just like to say a massive welcome to Zoe and a big thank you for joining us. And Zoe, if you can, just kind of starting off, looking at where you first got involved in football, like I say, kind of starting off from really at a grassroots level and how that kind of developed to where you are now.
Yeah, first of all, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be on. I had a little think about my background of football and had to go quite far back really to go back to where I started. Yeah, not probably the traditional route that the girls, the pathway that the girls follow now, but must have been about 7 or 8 when I started playing football, and it was just on the estate where I lived. All of the boys would just play football next to my house, so that's kind of my first involvement in football. Just played with them, fell in love with it through that. Just really raw football, playing on the streets really. I do remember I had one youth game that I remember playing in. It didn't go too well, but it was a mixed team. And I remember I played one game, and then after that, I remember they said, they told my mum and dad that I couldn't play with the mixed team anymore, because I think there was a rule change, girls and boys couldn't play together at the time. So that was kind of my experience of youth football completely. Didn't play another a game after that, just carried on playing where I lived. But through one of the boys that I played with on the estate, I remember he was like my best friend at the time, and he played for White Notley youth team. So I just used to go with them all of the time, just watch, I'd train with them. And then I remember they set up a women's team. And at the time, obviously we're going way back now, but at the time you could start playing adult football at 14. So I remember when I was 13, 14, I started training with that adult team. Really, really nervous, obviously going from just playing with loads of boys to loads of women, but I remember loving it. And that's where I met my first football coach, David Streetley, who you know very well. So yeah, met him then. From that, so I played for White Notley. From that, Streets moved to Braintree. They wanted to start up a women's team because the men's were doing really well. So a few of the players followed him there, but we had to start right at the bottom of county leagues because we were a new team. So I had to start back at the bottom. But yeah, we had quite a few years there, really successful. I think we had 5 promotions in a row just to get us back to the same level where we were at. So I was there, and then through that I started to volunteer with Streets away from football, and that's kind of where my interest in coaching came about as well. And as soon as I was 16, I did my coaching badges and got into employment for a sports community project. From there, Streets moved to Colchester to work, and just because I knew him and heard about jobs there, I got a job there, and then ended up playing for Colchester United as well. So it was never something that I aspired to be playing for a team at a higher level, but yeah, it's just something that came about. So yeah, loved it there, and I played there until they folded the community project. I don't know what happened there, money, that sort of stuff, but I was there until it folded, and then joined C&K Basildon. Started working for the FA as a sports coach, as you know, well, skills coach. Played there for quite a few seasons, and then yeah, ended up at Billericay now.
Nice. And like you said, it's interesting because obviously they said it wasn't maybe the traditional sort of route that you took potentially, but obviously opportunities kind of came their way, and I'm taking it you just took them and embraced them really. Would you kind of say that when you went to that first team, which kind of developed into a girls team, and like you said, Streets was the manager or the coach there, was that kind of an impact that led you to kind of think, you know what, I want to stay and do this? Obviously, like you loved football prior to that anyway, but was that kind of real sort of cement that kind of thought to you, well, do you know what, I want more of this now?
Definitely. I think I only played with the boys around the corner, and my friend's dad, who took me to all of the training sessions, I can't thank him enough. I wouldn't have been able to join football without him, but he was the only kind of person coming out the back and giving us some ideas of what to do. Other than that, we just played. So I remember when I went to the first women's team and started getting coaching and started to become a member of a team, it just came so naturally to me to kind of not just play for myself and 1v1 or 1v all, to start to kind of work with a team and come up with strategies and tactics and plans. And I just thought, as soon as we started doing it, I was thinking, it's a bit of me, it's what I want to do, and I wanted to carry on playing. I just loved it. I wanted to carry on playing and just enjoying it, really. Yeah.
And was the other women within the team as well, was they kind of on the same sort of thinking process? Because like you said, obviously, probably early on in terms of, as well, especially that club specifically, sort of building a women's team, did they kind of have the same sort of motivations, and did they want to be coached, or was they kind of, again, just there for the fun or social element?
Random. It was really random. So we had players of all ages. Obviously, I was 13, 14. You had some that were parents, some that had played higher and then had dropped down towards the end of their career. It was just a real mixed bag. And I do remember one game when I was 16, Streets made me captain for a game, which I was buzzing about, nervous about, but it just was a bit of a mixed feel. Like some of the women that have just played and always thought, the oldest person should be the captain, or the most experienced should be captain, and then there were some that were like, I think it's brilliant that you're captain. It was just a complete mixed bag. But yeah, Streets dealt really well with how diverse it was, and it really did teach me a lot, because every team that you join, you just have such a vast amount of characters and personalities. So I think it was tough, but the best start for me, the best experience to learn from.
Yeah, I think it's important as well that you have that range of characters, because I think if everyone's kind of the same mold of players, and sometimes especially in previous conversations within this series I've had with people, and they said that, like, how academies kind of want everyone to be the exact same player. It's kind of competitive, it's kind of, I suppose, robotic in the sense of everyone's exactly the same and everyone's playing the same. And I think that, especially the experiences you talk about there, it seems more of just like, look, you're there because you want to play, and the pressure's kind of off, because, like, especially from your point of view anyway, it's kind of, look, I'll take these opportunities as they come, and I'm not going to let it kind of overtake me and think, well, I'm going to do everything I can to push as far as that stage anyway, at least. So yeah, I find that quite interesting. And obviously, like you said, so quite a range of different experiences early on, and like I said, a different range of characters. So I suppose from a coach's point of view, it's probably pretty hard to really put sort of, I don't know, I suppose, playing philosophies or coaching styles down at that point. But what was kind of the differences you've experienced from sort of that first team where you've been at, to obviously Colchester, to C&K Basildon, to Billericay Town now? What's changed within the coaching? Has anything changed, or is it kind of always been sort of, again, that play element?
Yeah, I think the biggest change for me is when I went from Braintree, which working with Streets, to going to Colchester United. The first thing that I remember thinking is just the sheer number of players and teams from youth to first team, and then the coaches. So it wasn't just one or two coaches, and there was, every team had a manager and a coach. And I just remember thinking, how am I going to get to know all of them, and who do I have to try and impress, and who plays for who? It was a crazy experience, but it was just a lot. It was just a lot more structured. I mean, Streets was very organised and very structured, but you kind of knew that you had to be performing, you had to be early for training, you had to perform in training, you had to compete with everybody. It wasn't that kind of, previously it was more personal. I could have a chat, if I couldn't make training one day for whatever reason, Streets could understand. But at Colchester, the sheer level of competition was crazy. So if you dropped the ball at any point, you knew that you could be sitting on the bench without even a conversation if the coaches were busy that week and the first team manager. So yeah, it was tough, but again, another experience that I really did learn from, because I had to go from being with somebody who knew me very well and I knew them very well, to not knowing anyone and having to kind of gauge what they were thinking about me without them having to tell me all the time. And yeah, that's tough. I wasn't the type of player that could be shouted at or be told that something wasn't good or something wasn't great at the time. It kind of knocked my confidence more than making me want to work hard. So I had to really toughen up and take things on the chin a lot more.
And do you think that, like you kind of said there about the personal characteristics, really, I think, like you said, obviously you went with Streets over 2 different clubs. And I suppose although maybe the structures might be slightly different, or the clubs, or the hierarchy of the clubs might want something slightly different from the outcomes, whether it be competitive or just, I suppose, the structure of the club itself. Do you think that sort of personal relationship is important? Because I think as often, like, and especially one of the reasons why I kind of got this series going is to kind of really highlight the importance between player and coach, or player and manager relationship. Because I think often, you know, people, and it's fine to have this outlook, but a lot of coaches or managers, you know, they want to get as high as they can. And, you know, they're potentially going to clubs to do sort of sessions or whatever it may be. But at the end of the day, they kind of also look at it in the sense of, you know, I want to try and progress my own career. From a player's perspective, is that something which kind of, like I said, you need to allow the manager to do, or do you kind of have to buy that in from the manager's perspective as well?
Sorry, I lost you for a minute there.
That's all right. No, I was just saying that, yeah, like in terms of that player and coach relationship, do you think it's something which, you know, players understand that, you know, what coaches may only be here for a little while, or do you think that the ownership is or kind of on the managers or coaches to kind of be like, look, I need to understand every single player who's here at the time of me being in this environment?
I think it's massively important that if you are going to be a coach or a manager of a team, it's so important that you get to know them all individually. Every single person is so different, and every single person might need a different approach or a different way of speaking to them or getting the best out of them. And I know for me personally, I know how I like to be coached or spoken to. So if my manager or coach doesn't know that and they try a different approach, I'm not going to be the best that I can be. I just think that to create a relationship or a rapport with that person, it is really important, because I'm not saying that you always have to be friends with that person, or you don't always have to get along with them. You know, there's been managers in the past where it's probably not your favourite person and you're not theirs, but you want the same outcome at the end, and that's the best for the team. So, yeah, I just think you don't have to be friends with them, but you do have to find that common ground or that certain relationship that's going to help get the best out of them for the better of the team.
Yeah, no, I think that makes sense. And I think, like you said, even whether it be managers trying to develop or even players trying to develop, you're all going in that same kind of route anyway. So yeah, it makes sense that you kind of bounce off each other and work off each other. And obviously, when you left Colchester and you went to a different team, obviously Streets wasn't there as well. How did you have to react as a player to, like I said, a kind of different way of being coached? Because I'm taking it they had different ideas, they had maybe a different coaching style or coaching characteristic.
Yeah, I think I'd had, although Streets worked at Colchester, he wasn't involved in the team that I played in. So I kind of had that comfort blanket of playing for a new manager, but Streets was in and around the environment. So if there was something I wasn't sure of, I could always kind of go to him and have a chat. But so yeah, going to Basildon, it was a complete fresh start, just on my own. But to be fair, Steve Tilson was the manager when I went there, and me and a few of the girls were kind of deciding which team to go to. But the moment that I met him and the first training session that we had with him, I just knew that he was the guy that I wanted to play for. Just a good mix of humour, knowledge. Yeah, just really personable to each player or each person that come along. And I just got to know him really, really quickly, and he got to know me, and it just happened quite naturally, and it was quite easy. So yeah, I was quite fortunate for that, really.
Yeah, I think again it kind of links in with what you're saying, that like that getting to know the players. I think, you know, from a manager's or coach perspective, it's kind of like that's what you need to do. You need to understand your team, but then, like you just said there, from a player's perspective, you're buying so much more. And again, previous conversations I've had with players, they've kind of said, you know, that first meeting with a manager or a coach or the coaching team even is so important, because it's either where you're in unity with them or you're totally against them, because depending on how their approach is, and you know, some managers may come in from a different team and think, well, at this previous team this worked for me, like you said, maybe the aggressive commanding style of coaching, but as you just mentioned there, that isn't what brings out the best in you. So, you know, they need to understand what's going to work and how best to get that out. And kind of around that point as well, I know you briefly touched on it there, but if you was to sort of look at yourself as a whole, what kind of brings out the best Zoe Rushen? So the best like coaching and the best mechanisms to use as a coach or manager in you?
I just think when I think back to when I've been at my best or been at my most confident, it's just about knowing what was going well for me. So what I've been doing good, what are my strengths and how can I use them in the games? But then also somebody just giving me that little nudge or asking me a question, or what do you want to improve, or how do you think you can improve it? And just these little bite-sized pieces of information, not too much for me to take on, but just one bit at a time. I could try it and see how it goes, and just that two-way conversation, not just somebody telling me what to do, not just somebody leaving me to my own devices, you know, just that two-way conversation of what's going well, what you enjoy and what you're happy with. Now, how can we get to the next step? So yeah, somebody, whether that's the coach or manager, or I've had it even before with captains of the team. So yeah, just having that kind of other person or other people just to bounce off and get ideas from.
Nice. And do you think that there will be the sort of similar process to whether you're in form, out of form, or doesn't it really matter? It's still the same sort of messages.
I think so. I think obviously performing and winning is a habit. So when I feel good and I'm having good conversations, and then the team are performing well and I'm performing well, it's just the momentum that picks up and carries on. But so yeah, I think it does affect that. But also, you know, you're not going to win all the time. You're not going to play well all the time. So it's having that resilience and having that honesty, as well as just, you know, giving someone confidence. You have kind of got to address some issues at certain points.
Yeah. No, makes sense. And throughout your sort of career up to date so far, what would kind of be the sort of most memorable experience within a team from your point of view, whether it be sort of, again, when you first started out, so it potentially might be someone who had that impact, so maybe like you said with Streets, or whether it be sort of a moment within your game where, you know, it's really stuck out in your mind.
I've had a little think about this, whether since you said it, but I have played for a long time, so there's quite a few memories. You know, lots of promotions, cup finals, tours, nights out. There's so much stuff that has been memorable for me. But I'm going to choose one that happened more recently, and I'm choosing it because it's reminiscent of how I started football and how I've become to love a team, and then I've seen it, you know, 10 years down the line. So for me, it's a really good memory to share. But so basically, when I joined TNK Basildon, after a couple of seasons, we managed to get promotion into the Southern Prem, which I think at the moment is the National League South, I think.
So, yeah.
So we got into that league with Stephen at TNK Basildon, and there was lots of talk about whether we would be able to stay in that league, just because we were the unknown. It was really tough to recruit players. They were all going to the London teams or teams that were affiliated with the men's team and were better known. But we managed to stay up in that league and, you know, get a few players here and there. But my final season with Basildon and with Steve, and as captain as well, just made it extra special. But we managed to come second in the league. And you're talking against teams. We had Charlton, West Ham, Crystal Palace, Lewis, like really big teams. We came second, but on top of that, we managed in the league 100% record at home. So we literally won every single home game in the league. And I just remember thinking, not how have we done it, but it was just so unexpected. We were always the underdogs. We were always the team that nobody had heard of. And we just, with the group of players that we had, we just managed to get something out of that team that was beyond ability. It was just something extra, something special. And yeah, that was just incredible to think back to. It's, you know, one of my biggest achievements. And as I say, it reminded me of when I was at Braintree with Streets, because we just had some local girls that just wanted to play football, and he managed to get that same thing out of the players beyond ability, that just something extra just to give you some success. And yeah, I think that's something that I'll always be really proud of.
No, I think that's a fantastic memory to have. And as well, from what I know of you as well, and the teams that you played within, there has been that element of togetherness, and that element of fun as well. And I think that, like we were saying earlier on, listen, it's not a problem to have the ambitions of wanting to go as far as you can and doing whatever you can to get to that stage. But I think one of the big key things with you in your career so far anyway has been just enjoying it, and enjoying the teams that you've been within. And I think that, like, you know, even there you said obviously the you know, the team C&K Basildon may have come into it as a sort of unknown team, but I guarantee you that even though players may have left or wanted to leave or whatever they have done, and again, it's up to them if they leave, that's fine. They want to go on their career, their paths. But I think the teams that you have been in and the team that you had, you know, it's that togetherness, and it's that thing of, well, we're going to do this as a team, not as individuals. So, and I think that's credit to what you achieved within that season as well. So looking at it as a kind of whole, then it's a very sort of cliche question, but into any sort of inspiring girls or boy footballers, what would kind of be your key message in terms of, you know, the cliche thing of how to make it as a football player, but then also switching it a little bit, and pointing it onto kind of the theme and topic of this conversation. What advice would you give to coaches to be aware of or parent to, from a player's perspective?
I think for the coaches, and it's advice that I use myself now working in a primary school. I just think give players opportunities. So for me personally, as I said, growing up, I didn't know of any academies or any centre of excellence. I didn't know of anything like that. I just knew about playing with my friends. So now I am determined for boys and girls in school, whether it's lunchtime clubs, after school clubs, or during PE, I'm just determined to give them a positive experience of playing football. And then from that, if the kids enjoy it, whether it's a boy or a girl or not, whether they enjoy it, they would then carry on. Does that make sense? Just to kind of give them that one little taste of something fun, let them know that it is for them, and then just support them on that journey, whether it's finding a team or just having them come to your sessions every single week. So that's my advice for a coach, is just to create an opportunity that somebody wouldn't have had before you. And for players, I just think if you're enjoying something, just crack on, just keep going, keep trying, and see where it takes you.
I think great messages, and I think especially in terms of that creating pathways. I mean, we're seeing it a lot more within the girls and women's game now, which is great anyway. But like you said, even if it's just playing, like, it doesn't always need to be that competitive structure. That's great because there is a pathway for people to go on to. But, you know, even again, credit to your career and how it's kind of come about. Just you done it through playing, like you said, street football. I think that's so often under sort of, you know, taken away basically from people thinking, oh, you know, you need to get them into a team straight away. And I know from our experiences of being coaches, often parents wanting to get their players into teams straight away, but like the skill centres that we run, you know, think how much enjoyment players had there just through playing and experiencing football. So yeah, I think that message is key. And one more kind of thing to pick up on. So obviously, like you said, you started your coaching early on within your playing career, and obviously, like you said, now you're within education and you're within a school as well. Do you kind of think that that's helped you within your game in terms of, you know, going through the coaching education pathway and obviously working at the FA as well, that's helped you see it from a coach or manager's perspective?
Yeah, massively. I think one of the biggest things for me has just been the amount of people that I've been exposed to. I just want to learn as much as I can from them. So whether it's me as a coach coaching little ones and I see them do something and I think, oh, I never thought to do it in that way before, or whether it's, you know, going to St George's Park and being able to speak to some of the most experienced coaches, just whatever environment I'm in, I just want to listen and soak up as much as I can. And whether that's for me as a player or me as a coach or me now teaching, just having that, you know, a big bank of knowledge and different ideas and creativity ready to go, I think that's helped me. Yeah.
You know, I just wanted to pick up on a point because I think obviously from what I know of you and the knowledge that you have as a coach, not only as a player as well, but I do think that sort of marriage between coaching and playing, like sometimes I say to players or to coaches anyway when I'm mentoring them, is that you're almost developing the next crop of coaches when you're developing players, because you're giving them that knowledge. And from a player's perspective, you've got the experience. I mean, especially between the two of us, I mean, I've not played nowhere near the experiences which you played at. So in having that as well within your coaching knowledge and understanding, then I think, yeah, it definitely helps to raise your game as a player as well, because you can relate to the coaches and I suppose where they're coming from. But listen, Zoe, fantastic insight into your career so far. Still, hopefully, a lot more seasons left in you to play. But yeah, great insight. Like I said, not only for girls, but also for boys as well. And especially in terms of, from, like I said, the whole series is kind of around experiences of players being coached, but kind of leaning and swaying towards coaches and what they need to be aware of, and you know, especially from the players' perspective, because that's who they're working with. So yeah, some fantastic messages for people to take away, whether they're listening or watching to this. And yeah, hopefully, you know, people will take some insight into this and take it into their own game and their own learning and development. So yeah, I massively thank you for taking part in this and giving up the time. Again, great messages given out. And am I right in thinking that the season isn't going to start up till next season now?
Yeah, the season's done now, so we're just waiting for the green light to get going. We're doing some one-to-one coaching bits at the moment, but yeah, we've just got to wait for government advice on that now, unfortunately.
Well, at least, like, you know, there's a clear sort of, again, path, I suppose, of when you're going to get going or how you're going to get going. So yeah, but all right, well, Zoe, thank you for taking part in this. I wish you the best of luck for next season, whenever it starts. And yeah, like I said, great insight and great messages. So thank you for your time, and hope you get to be seen. No worries. Take care, Zoe. Bye.
Cheers. Bye.